Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq, hollering at you one more again. True indeed, true indeed. Word life. We'll let the chat fill up a little bit. In the meantime, have a listen to one of the songs off my album, Flexible. True indeed. Check me out. That's right. Flexible. How do you feel? How do you chill? How do you deal when this ish gets way too real? You maybe need a breath, probably need a second. Bad decision. Get the head, Bobby. Get the good head, nah. With the righteous queen, she living right mind tight, keep it sexy. I be's the righteous dude with a good heart. Welcome, family. I see folks chiming. Okay, we got Brother Sean in the house. Brother Sean Anchor. All right. True indeed. The work schedule got you locked into it a little longer. Gotta chill a little sometimes. The pressure's gonna get stronger. Apologize if it's a little confusing getting in to the live stream. We had to end it, started over. Unforeseen, strange technical difficulties. But we moved past that. Sean's mom. Pleasure to have met you. Namaste. Thank you for chiming in. Hi to her. Like nature boy, I appreciate surroundings on this planet with joy. I love a sunny day. I love a snowy scene. I enjoy the fall day. My football team. I like the spring flowers and the ladies too. I look forward to making some music with Sean one of these days soon. We can appreciate the change is the primary reason. We got different styles for different times of year. Highland Park, we love the party, and it sure seems clear. It's a benefit to adapt with change. Keep an open mind, and nothing seems that strange. We got good times, the hood gotta discover. We can love all the sisters and brothers. We just got to be flexible. This track produced by good friend, incredible super producer Juggernaut. J-Pad the Juggernaut. Let that ride. That's one you can let ride. Hey, whoever else is coming in, I see some folks starting to come in. Please announce yourself in the chat so I can give everyone in the conversation give everyone in the conversation their proper acknowledgement as they join in with us, right? Because we love you and we welcome you, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation together in this wonderful forum. All right. I see we starting to build up a little bit. Couple of folks in here. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, me and
Me and Sean, we'll be talking soon, my friend, about doing some music together. We've had those conversations. For those who don't know, I do currently have my first album available, PLR New Paradigm, right? On pretty much all streaming platforms, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. Um, yeah, please check me out. Please check out the album in its entirety. I want you all to enjoy the range, right? I think I got a pretty nice range of songs that there should be a little something in there for everybody, right? Maybe a lot. So yeah, definitely check that out. All right, magnificent. We'll continue having folks file on in. That's fine as we build up our forum once again. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. True indeed. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining in again. We got somebody else come on in. Please announce yourself in the chat so we can give you the proper homage and respect. Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to announce yourself if you don't want to. They disappeared just as quick as I said that. Come on back. You don't have to announce yourselves. Just watch. Leash. All right. True indeed. True indeed. What's up, cuz? Thank you so much for checking me out. All right. So, man, really, we have come a long way. We're coming a long way in this forum, right? Thank you all, family and friends, chiming in, jumping in. That is wonderful. I got my both good friends, but my cousin Alicia in here, and my good friend Sean, and we're gonna have more folks chiming on in and joining in. But today is I think I think I have a really fun, exciting, and interesting subject for us to share together, right? Okay. So today's subject matter is a bit of a question, right? That I'm posing openly. I see a couple of more folks come on in. Welcome. We love you. Come on in. Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. You're building with Big King. Yeah, today's subject matter is very interesting, and I think it's going to be really, really fun for us to bounce this back and forth off of each other. So I'm posing the question: are examples of the Mandela Effect in fact signs of alternate realities / timelines that we are entering into and traversing through presently, as we are in this state where the veil is very thin and tenuous, and we are indeed in many places and in many individual situations, circumstances, people, places, and things, right? We are seeing multidimensionality, right? So what I did just a little quick research. I actually have been looking at this all week long. Just a couple of things caught my eye, and other things have been popping up to me, and somehow I've been entering into this conversation with folks pretty much all week. So it only made sense to continue it here in this forum. What I have, there were a ton. There's so many more of these that I could have presented today, right? But what I did was I came up with sort of like a top 12. There's probably a lot that are even more intriguing and more interesting and puzzling and head scratching that you all can help me to discover as we continue this conversation, right? But what I'm going to do is just read off a list of 12 examples of the Mandela Effect, right? Now, I didn't put them in any particular order in terms of, what I deem to be more perplexing or what might be more difficult or dubious for us to try and find some sort of an answer for or even a solid position on. But I just clearly listed them out, so I'm reading them just how I happen to write them down, right? Okay. Yeah, this is kind of fun because when you stop and think about each of these, and here's another thing I'm gonna do instead of waiting to open them up, to open this up for a Q&A at the end, and sort of taking the typical format today. How about I read each one of these 12 off, and if anybody has a comment or something about that they'd like to chime in on, please just start throwing it in on the chat. Hey, what's up, brother Jordan Smith? We was just talking about that. We're gonna get to that one. He already brought one up. All right, let me get started. Word life. All right. So the first example of this, right? And just to refresh everybody on the topic, I'm asking and sort of posing the question openly, right? Are examples of the Mandela Effect signs or clues to alternative realities that we're experiencing right now / alternative timelines, right? Okay. All right. So we call it the Mandela Effect, right? Now, it has been suggested that there have actually been earlier examples of this that could have taken on the namesake, but the Mandela Effect is what we have now. So what is the whole Mandela Effect? This is a really, really interesting one because it involves like an incredibly famous and well-known world leader, right? A martyr, we could say so many things about this great man. But what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the actual circumstances that lead us to the phrase the Mandela Effect. So, most of us understand and know who Mandela is. Nelson Mandela, out of South Africa, powerful activist and leader in so many ways in South Africa, was imprisoned in South Africa. Many of us recall, and this is one of the real interesting ones for me because I recall both of these realities, which is incredibly perplexing. But I and so many others recall and remember Nelson Mandela actually dying in the penitentiary in the 1980s. Okay? Which is incredibly perplexing that I do remember that, and so many people remember that. In fact, there's even details. We remember a struggle between his widow and the state over his body and rights to allow her to have what she could consider the proper burial in her culture, right? There was a whole big thing about it. But yet and still, the contemporary narrative is that Nelson Mandela did not die in the penitentiary, in a prison in South Africa, that he in fact went on to later leave the penitentiary or leave the prison and go on to become the president of South Africa. Now, folks, as I said, this is incredibly perplexing for me because I recall distinctly both realities. How is that? How is that? And we see more folks chiming in. Folks, I'm taking a little bit different format than I do in or have in past weeks. I'm sort of opening these up now. What I've done is opened up the question to the forum, right? To the family. Are examples of the Mandela Effect, in fact, signs of alternate realities / alternate timelines, right? And what I'm going to do this week is just with this particular format, I'm going to read an example out of this 12 that I've selected, and then folks can chime on in and we'll see what y'all want to bounce back off of. Okay. So yeah, that is essentially the Mandela Effect. Anybody again who wants to announce themselves in the chat and has anything to bounce back, please start now because this is a deep one. I want to know what y'all think about this, right? This is incredibly profound and for me, again, incredibly perplexing because I recall both realities. They say, well, how is that, Big King? How can you remember it both ways? I just do. I remember in the 80s being in school still, and even that's what's deep for me. I even remember in school how we had sort of a morning, like a period of mourning, how we talked about it a little bit in school, the passing of Nelson Mandela. I'm telling y'all what happened in in my life, right? And yet there's also, I recall and am totally aware of the reality where he went on to become president of South Africa. Now, I mean, folks, this is it's interesting. And then there's even another layer of it, right? Most of you are aware of the fact that in the second or alternative, hold on, I'm gonna get to Sean in 1 second here. In the second or alternative reality, or the more contemporary reality, that he went on to become the president of South Africa, there is the sub sort of issue or subject that there was a falling, like him and his wife, parted ways. And there was even some tension there, right? And there's that whole thing that developed and became, of course, something that people took great interest in, right? So yeah, that's deep. That there are sort of sub layers of this that I can recall. Okay, so Sean stated, STG, y'all gotta forgive me, I'm not down with so many abbreviations. STG, thought I learned that in school. Right, true that. That's what I'm saying. I had real interesting recollections of this. Now, we were in school, Sean and I, in different eras. I'm much older than Sean, right? So what I learned in school, Sean, chime back in when you get a chance on exactly what you learned in school. I would like to see what the difference might be between my experience and yours. Jordan says, the thing about this topic is very strange. Jordan goes on to say, I think people are using it as propaganda in a way. Okay, Jordan. Give us a little bit more on that. In what way do you feel that people are using this as propaganda? That's definitely another layer of this that we can take a look at, right? And anybody else got something to say about this or a question about that? Let me just ask everyone else. Do you recall this in one way? And if so, in what way or the other do you recall it, right? Do you recall it as Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s? Or do you recall Nelson Mandela leaving prison and going on to become the president of South Africa at some point? Sean jumps back in and says, okay, well, hold up. Jordan first came back in and says, like how statues are being torn down and things, is what I mean by that. Okay, thank you for elaborating on that, Jordan. I wasn't even aware that people are like taking action on these things. I thought that people were just keeping track of them sort of online, maybe discussing them loosely. But now we see that this is an actionable thing that is prompting action in people, right? But I could certainly see how that would happen. I mean, it can be very unsettling, some of these things, especially if you have as clear and profound memories on some of these things as I have, right? So that's interesting, Jordan. I don't know. Perhaps there are some people who are approaching this with some sort of an agenda, right? Sean comes back in and says, when I first heard about the Mandela Effect, my first thought was that I swear I learned in school that he did die in prison. Okay, so even in your generation, Sean, thank you so much. There is that narrative that he died in prison. I mean, I'm telling you, I vividly recall actually going to school and like we had discussions on this, right? Probably in social studies or something like that, right? Jordan jumps back in, yeah. And I have no clue if that is relevant to this topic. I just thought it sort of related to this. No, it's very much related because it is showing and demonstrating how these things are impacting people, right? So that just adds a whole nother nuance to this. There's the question that we ask ourselves, well, is this, like an actual evidence of alternative realities or timelines? That's one question. But then another thing is that this is actually something that is impacting people profoundly enough that it's causing them to take action, right? Okay. My man B, one of my best friends in the entire world, Brian Williams. Thank you for chiming in, bro. He says, "What's up, bro? I remember the latter, him being freed and becoming president. I hear you. I remember that too. That's what's so deep and perplexing for me. I remember both of these realities distinctly. Now, here, this should add a whole nother slice to it, y'all, because Brian is the exact same age as me, and we went to school together, graduated together, and he remembers distinctly or more profoundly the reality where Nelson Mandela went on to become president. Whereas Sean went to school in a whole nother decade, and he recalls what I also recall, that Nelson Mandela died in prison. Come on, man, this is deep, right? Okay, my cookie dough too. Okay, they had something they said, and then they came back in and said, yes, both. Okay, I'm taking that to mean that you recall both. It's deep, right? I do too. Jermaine Cisco, what's up, my friend? Good brother. I thank you for chiming in. Some of us also know each other. Brian and Jermaine and myself all went to school together. Alicia also went to the same school. Pin Hill, shout out. She just was a few years separated between us and her. But Jermaine says, "Hey, bro, I can verify that." Which one, Jermaine? Do you remember both realities, or do you remember that the reality where Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s? Or do you remember the reality where Nelson Mandela went on to leave prison and become the president of South Africa? Hit us back on that and let me know which one you can verify. Thank you for chiming in and for paying attention and being with us today. Yeah, it's wild, ain't it, Leisha? And we're just on the first one, right? We're just on one of 12 that I'm going to present to everybody. And like I said, there's so many more than that, right? Jermaine says both. Okay, word life. I recall both as well. That's why this is like incredibly perplexing for me. Tony Atlas, brother Silo. What's up, fam? In the house. True indeed. Man, another one of my best friends in the entire planet chiming in. Just happens to be Brian's brother. We are building today. I don't know if you saw the subject matter. I got to redo the intro because I had to come back in and restream. But yeah, we're building on examples of the Mandela Effect and whether or not they are clear signs of alternative realities / alternative timelines that we are currently experiencing on the planet. And everybody's chiming in on that as we're doing each example. I have a short list of about 12 that I'm going to run through and we can chime in on each one. Alicia chimes in with, I remember the latter and even the celebration of his release. Is it possible they just lied about his death? Ooh, a whole nother layer and nuance to the conversation. We have to say that that's a possibility, right? I don't have an answer for this. If anyone feels like they have a definitive answer, speak up. I don't know how. I think that'd be difficult to do because there's so many people in the world who remember both, right? But this is interesting. That's another nuance. Could it be, in fact, that he survived and they lied about his death while in prison, and then later he was released? Now, anybody who has more on that particular nuance, chime back in, please, when you get it, because I wonder what anybody said. You know what I mean? Like at the time, did people say, well, wait a minute, didn't we get notice that he died in prison? And now y'all saying he's released? Like, we're talking about this now. What did people say at the time? That's interesting. That is very interesting what Alicia brought up. Thank you so much for doing that. My cookie dough too. Yes, because we all live in different time spaces and dimensions all at once. I see somebody else is thinking like I am. Well, look at multidimensional you. Word life, true indeed. Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And it falls completely in line with what I'm saying. And I even spoke, I might have mentioned this in last week's episode, but if not, y'all, I did definitely talk about this in one of my rumble.com videos. By the way, quick shout out, please check me out on all platforms. And I have continued making videos. I don't upload live or upload my typical formatted videos to this channel anymore, but I do still upload those formatted videos to my rumble.com channel. Please check me out there as well. But that is very interesting. Thank you so much for offering that up. I agree wholeheartedly with that we are indeed in sort of as the Norwegian cultures would state, a Ragnarok period, right? Where the veil was very thin and the planet is full of multidimensionality, right? Both multidimensionality in the people and in actual locations on the planet. Now, my theory is that those locations on the planet would likely correspond with ley lines, right, which are energetic lines that sort of intersect on this planet to form an electromagnetic grid, right? But yeah, that's very interesting. All right, I'm gonna go. That was just number one, folks. We just getting started. That was just number one. Number two. Now, this one, I personally don't have like a whole lot of reference point on, but I'm gonna put it out there regardless. This one involves a rather famous individual as well. Britney Spears, right? Had a video. I kind of do remember this, but not as vividly as others. Britney Spears had a video wearing a headset that she was remembered by countless individuals, even though it said that in that particular headset, she did not. In that particular video, rather, she did not don a headset as she performed the video. So which was it? Headset or no headset? Well, I can state just as one nuance on the headset side, folks say that there is even a doll made in reflection of that video and that performance that she gave in that video, where she is in fact wearing a headset. Okay. The official, right, position is that she never donned a headset. So which is it? I'll throw that one out there as well. Okay. Sean Anchor has a comment, says she didn't have a headset. Okay. I don't know. I honestly don't recall clearly. I kind of let me put this out there. I don't know which video they're specifically talking about. When I read up on this, I didn't see those details. I'm sure they're out there. But I remember at least one video where she did wear a headset, because I remember specifically folks commenting on her sort of mimicking Janet Jackson wearing headsets and performing while like dancing and performing in her videos. So, there's that. To borrow a old school joint off of my man. I got to kick it up for the Steelers legend, Myron Cope. I don't know about that one. Okay. So Sean comes back in and says, no, I meant she didn't have a headset. Yeah, no, I know. You're saying she did not have a headset, but I'm saying I recall at least one video where she did. I don't know if this is the one that they're referencing or what, but I'm just saying I remember that. Let's say, swear she did. I loved her. Ha ha ha. So are you remembering it both ways, like me? Okay. My cookie dough too says, I remember the headset. She had a yellow skirt and a white top. More details. I don't know. I can't tell you what her apparel was or nothing like that. I can't tell you much about the video. I just vaguely remember seeing her like performing in a music video wearing a headset. But that's another interesting detail that makes us all curious. If somebody else can remember any details about Britney Spears' music career, her videos, and whether or not she had at least one video, like I'm remembering, with a headset, please chime in and speak on that, because I need to know that. Like, why do I remember at least one? And then we can figure out if that's what they're talking about or what. Excuse me. Folks, once again, this is an adult format. We've taken on an adult format as opposed to how the channel previously operated. The podcast format will be for adults only, right? Just because we're live, have no censors and no filter, whatever. Okay. Nobody else got any more details about Britney Spears? If not, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to bring up the next one. Anybody got anything else to say about Britney? Okay, word life. So, the next one on the list. This is another real interesting one for me because I remember it both ways. The very popular peanut butter, Jif. I recall the very same peanut butter in terms of the labeling, design, and all that, except I recall it at one point as being Jiffy, Jiffy, and countless other people recall this as well. I've spoken to some of them. However, the position of the peanut butter company is that it was never Jiffy and that it is always what it is currently on the shelves identified as Jif, Jif. Now, like I said, I just saw Jif on the shelves, yesterday. So obviously I'm not disputing that, right? But I'm telling y'all, I recall very distinctly and clearly the peanut butter and the labeling looking just like it is now, except the word on the front was Jiffy, Jiffy. Now, please, somebody chime in on that. Okay, Sean came back and it says, I meant it as a question. Like, what? She didn't have a headset? Oh, okay. I'm tripping, Sean. My bad, homie. I thought you were saying you remembered it as she had a headset. Okay, that was another comment on the Britney thing. Okay, Sean, do you got anything to add about this peanut butter deal? This was tripping me out because I'm telling you, I clearly and distinctly remember the actual label. I remember looking at the label Jiffy. I remember having Jiffy and eating it, right? Jermaine, okay, man. Thank you, bro. Somebody else. Jermaine remembers Jiffy as well. I'm telling you, man. I love it. These are indeed perplexing. So I remember like both. The reason I remember both is because the latter, the more contemporary one, Jif, I mean, it's on the shelves right now, so it's not really even a question of remembering it. And Jiffy, I just remember clearly. I'm not going to forget about that. I clearly remember it. Anybody else who remembers Jiffy? Come on, like some of you folks in my generation or older, do some of y'all remember Jiffy too? Brian, Salo. Okay, my cookie dough too says yes, she remembers or remembers Jiffy as well. Word life. I'm telling y'all, man, this is deep. So why does the company take this strong stance that Jiffy never existed and people are just mass? This is what's deep to me, y'all. That like I could never buy the explanation that is popularly being offered, or that when there is any sort of official, right, involved, they offer up the explanation that people are just mass misremembering. Yeah, I know. Okay. George says, yeah, it was definitely Jiffy. Okay. George remembers Jiffy as well. Thank you for chiming in with that. My darling daughter, Isha, chimes in and says, I remember that too. Wow. Now that's deep. Once again, we have an example of even different generations recalling things in contrast to what the contemporary narrative may be, right? Um, and Gina, her mother, welcome, both of you. Thank you so much. Regina chimes in to remember that she remembers Jiffy as well. This stuff is like, it's not just undeniable, it's a little bit like jars you in a way because the memories are so distinct. Like we've already offered up on several of these that there are different sub layers to it or different nuances that we recall that make it that much more perplexing. Okay. Anybody else recall that it was Jiffy and not Jiff? I'll wait a few seconds for that while I have a bite. By the way, shout out to my diet. I do still have PBJs, right? Although I have a very specific and different kind of peanut butter that does not have the ingredient of rapeseed in it. Interesting. Look at peanut butters for that ingredient. I have a brand of peanut butter that I get from Trader Joe's that does not have that ingredient, but it's one of the few. So I'm having that on a GMO certified, nice little multi-grainy bread that I have here. Pardon me. Got to keep the energy up, folks. Come on, I know somebody else. Brian, Sala. I'm really wanting to know, do y'all recall Jiffy peanut butter? Or in your memory, are we just tripping and it was Jiff? All right, now, at this point, yes, I was stalling to continue chewing. Keep it funky, Big King. True indeed. All right. I guess the peanut butter is not that consequential, right? So we'll move on to the okay. Brian chimes in, says basically, I'm paraphrasing him. Basically, y'all tripping. It was always Jiff. Okay. I remember differently, and some other folks do too. Okay. He didn't say y'all tripping. I put that in there. I'm just messing around. All right, word life. No, so this this is interesting. I thought about this when I was in the grocery store yesterday, right? Is it possible that because they are rivals or competitors, that we are mixing up the brand Skippy with their once being a Jiffy? That's interesting. And I thought that, but then upon further recollection for myself, No, I actually remember the competition between the two, and both of them ending in a Y sort of sticks in my mind too. Is that being part of it? So I don't know. That's just a little small nuance that I recall. But that is a good point that you brought up, Brian. And I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, or that might be a possibility, right? All right. Anybody else got something else that they would like to chime in about Jiff and Jiffy? If not, I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to read this next one. Give you about 30 seconds. Thank you, brethren, sister and sister and brethren, marijuana, ganja, righteous cannabis. Thank you, family. Highest healing DNA. Aid me further according to my intentions. Thank you, my creator, in me and everywhere. May my gratitude to my creator grow exponentially, eternal. Worldwide minimum solar system galaxy. All right. I had to pay my typical respects and homage. Okay, moving on to the next one. Now, this one again is a very interesting one to me because when I first made this list, I don't think I realized that there were so many on this list that I remember both ways. That's deep. Maybe I'm just mad multi-dimensional. Word life. Hint, hint. All right. This next one. How many of you remember? We all remember Bugs Bunny and his crew, right? How many of you remember the logo at the beginning being and reading Looney Tunes, spelled Looney space capital T, capital L on Looney, spelled capital Toons, as opposed to what I believe it appears to in contemporary times, Looney Tunes spelled Looney space Tunes. Like tunes. One is like tunes as in cartoons, and the other one is tunes as in like music tunes. Ah, now, just for the record, I always remember Looney Tunes as in cartoons. All right. But I have seen on numerous occasions the logo with tunes spelled Tunes. So, that one is a very interesting one for me, y'all. Please chime in, and whoever has something to say about that one. I definitely, without question, to me, it just always made sense. Oh, they put tunes in there because short for cartoons, right? Doesn't that make sense to you? All right. Although I clearly have seen on a plethora of occasions Looney Tunes spelled Tunes. Please, somebody chime in on this one because I gotta know. Which way do y'all remember it? Because I remember it both. All right. Anybody else have clear recollection on Looney Tunes spelled either way? Tunes as in Toons or tunes as in Tunes? Which one? Take your pick. All right. Interesting. I would have expected more comment on this one because cartoons are still around, right? Even those of you who may be younger and have young children, I guess Bugs Bunny and all of them have been pretty securely supplanted as far as selection of what to show little children now. So I can understand maybe some of you younger folks, like, for example, my daughter's generation might have not so vivid or clear recollections on this, or if any at all. But for me, and I would think some of the folks my generation would recall Looney Tunes, Toons, right? So clearly, I recall that. So somebody hit me with something on that, because I got to know that somebody recalls Looney Tunes, right? That is when I could see the logo popping on the screen at the end of one of the cartoons. Like, I could vividly see that in my mind right now. Hit me back. Silo. Perfect person to ask this. Silo got a jam, being a fellow artist, a dope jam that we used to love listening to back in the day that I hadn't heard so long, that I would love to hear again. And please send me, brother, if you can. Got a jam called Toontown, spelled Toons, where some of those popular cartoons that you might recognize from Looney Tunes, he works into his jam magnificently, masterfully, and yeah, the whole jam is dope. Toontown. B, I know you remember that one, right? Silo being the creator of that. Please, y'all, chime in on Looney Tunes. I'm waiting. Regina, which do you recall? Or do you recall both? If you're still in, Looney Tunes, Toons, or Looney Tunes, Tunes. All right, nobody's hitting me on Looney Tunes. I'm going to revisit that one because I got to know. Going on to the next one. Okay, this is the one that Jordan jumped in with. Okay, all right. Before I move on, we get a seconding of the Toons. Brian remembers both O's in that, right? Okay, thank you. I distinctly remember that. All right, so still, I'm going to go on to the next one. This is the one that Jordan opened up with, right? Or was going to open up with. The Berenstein Bears. Now, they got that spelled two different ways. I only remember the one in this particular reality. This is not something that I've touched base on frequently throughout the years. So a change might not be as distinct to me on this one. It's not. I only remember it one way. Okay, so here it is. The more contemporary spelling. No, the spelling I remember. I guess I'm gonna call it the old school spelling. Is BERENSTEIN, with stain, or being spelled sort of like steam, the name STEIN. Okay. And I guess the more contemporary spelling is Berenstain Bears, spelled BERENSTAIN. which in this in this atmosphere of being politically correct, I think I could potentially see where there would be maybe some issue, potentially even being raised by the Jewish community. I don't know about the Berenstein spelling. But here's the thing. The official comment is that no, it was never spelled that way. It was always Berenstain, as in Stain. If anybody has a comment on that one, please chime in. I won't wait nearly as long before moving on to the next. Okay. Folks not too shook about the Berenstein Bears. The next one is, now this one holds a little more memory for me because I watched this dude all the time when I was little. My scenes watched it, at least some, and like I think even maybe my grandchildren watch this. I don't know for sure. I should. Okay. Curious George. Everybody knows who Curious George is, right? The little monkey. The question is, does Curious George have a tail or not? I remember Curious George with a tail. That's how I always remembered him. Not only, in my mind, I can remember not only his little cartoon that way, but in my mind, I also remember having a book. It would be dope if I could pull it out to show it. That would have been an incredible prop for this conversation if I could remember Curious George having a tail. Okay, Regina comments, I did not realize the spelling changed to Berenstain. Oh, she remembers Berenstain too. Okay, thank you on that one. And then she comes back and said, yes, he had a tail as far as I remember. See? Yeah, that one I definitely, that was my little homie, Curious George, back in the day, man. Yeah, he had a tail. And okay, here's another nuance. If I'm not mistaken, there were several episodes where Curious George had got into some kind of situation or had some kind of issue involving his tail. So they can miss me with that one. True that. Sean comes back in and says he didn't have a tail. Okay, and I get it. He got the question marks. You're posing that as a question. Okay. So Sean also remembers Curious George as having a tail. Yes, Sean, the contemporary version of Curious George apparently does not have a tail. Go figure. Anybody else got a comment about Curious George? That was a good one for me. That I'm telling you, so many days I just can remember that plainly and clearly. There's like no question in my mind about his tail. I'll wait a couple more seconds on Curious George, and then I'm moving on to the next. Nobody else on Curious George. Silo. You still with us? If you are, holla back. Curious George. All right. I'm moving on. B, I would, if you still with us, I know you remember Curious George. Me and B go so far back, we might have sat and watched Curious George together. Nah. Well, maybe. I don't know. Me and Brian met when we were about, if I recall, somewhere between 9 and 11. Round it off to 10 if you want. But no, we at least knew each other. Hold on, correction on that. We at least knew each other from school at 9 years old. And we both 50. All right, keep it moving. Jordan chimes in. What's up, Jordan? Says it was Stain for sure. Steen as in Stein for sure. And he had a tail. So he chimed in on the Berenstein Bears and Curious George. He remembers having a tail as well. In the cartoon I used to watch. Yeah, I used to watch that too, bro. He remembers it the same way I do. All right, word life, y'all. The next one I'm gonna move into is, do y'all recall it being, was an extremely popular TV show. Do y'all remember it being Sex in the City, IN, or Sex and the City? Apparently, Sex in the City is I guess I'm labeling it the old time version of what I recall, right? I do not recall this Sex and the City, although I have to admit, probably not being the most avid follower, but I'm obviously very familiar with it because just about everybody, I would assume just about most people are, right? But how do you remember it? I remember Sex in the City, as in New York City. That's how I remember it. But please, anybody who remembers it, Sex and the City, or both ways, or whatever, please chime in. I'm just curious to see how people remember that one. I, again, wasn't necessarily the most avid viewer of that, admittedly, but I know the way I remember it is Sex in the City, and I remember it being the in the city part referring to in New York City. That's just the way I remember it. I'll wait a little bit to see if anybody chimes in on that. Sex in the City or Sex and the City? I think that the difference is very distinct. Like, maybe in saying it, it sounds very, very similar, Sex in the City, Sex in the City. If you say it fast enough, it can almost be difficult to differentiate between the two, right? But I clearly remember Sex in the City. Anybody recall that? Please chime in. Okay. Jordan hollers back. Yeah, that one. I'm not too sure on really, but I go with my first answer. Okay, I'm assuming you're saying Sex in the City. Okay, Gina chimes back in. Sex in the City. That's the way I remember it too, right? Isha also remembers Sex in the City. Okay. Yeah, that one kind of hit me. Like, but folks, the official comment on this one is that it's Sex and the City and always has been. But, like, you know how shows open up in the beginning, they got the little, not the trailer, but the opening. I remember the opening saying Sex in the City. Like, clearly. Okay, I'll wait a couple more seconds on that one. Thank y'all for chiming on that one. and then I'll move on to the next one. I should have one of those little chimes playing. Dun, 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 dun. Nah, I guess I can't get too close to Jeopardy without, folks like to sing it these days. What? All right. Jordan comes back. All of these things really makes me think they are trying to erase the Holocaust. Oh, that's interesting. Don't get me started on the country being inundated with Nazis ever since Project Paperclip after World War II. And that would certainly fall into their agenda. But that's probably going to be a whole nother podcast, right? We ain't going to go too far there. But thank you, Jordan. Incredible point. Brian Williams comes back in and says, I think it's like you said, bro. And in terms to end all the time, right? Like, I remember Sex in the City. And people, when they say it fast, the two can be easily misconstrued. So talking about it doesn't help too much as far as what we used to call it, because most of us probably said it fast enough for it to be either one. Brian saying example would be like macaroni and cheese. Yeah, true. But B, the difference, it's like actually both distinct spellings. They're saying sex in the city, like sex in the city, or sex and the city, sex and the city. Now, I know speaking it could be that way, but they're talking about the actual spelling. And I remember the logo clearly spelled one way, IN. So, and some other folks do as well. So that's interesting though. That's deep. How could something that we misconstrue, because I think Brian's point is an excellent one, that we often do that, right? We misconstrue just saying things quickly, like peanut butter and jelly. I just said literally peanut butter and jelly, but really it's peanut butter and jelly, right? And most of us probably remember it peanut butter ampersand jelly. Word life. All right. I'm gonna read the next one. So next on my list is this one. I don't know that I have I remember it one way, just not like vehemently so. Like I can't be like, yeah, I distinctly remember it this way. And it is Febreze, one of two spellings. Febreze or Febreze, Febreze as in one E. So with two E's, like we would typically spell breeze, or Febreze with one E as in an alternate spelling. For the record, the contemporary and I guess official spelling is that it is currently and always was Febreze, Febr single Eze. And if I said that backwards, somebody chime in and correct me, but from what I recall in the research, it was the single E, which is the contemporary version and officially accepted by the company. Please chime in on that one, folks. Y'all might like, I remember it with the two E's. I don't know how anybody else remembers it. Anybody on Febreze before I move on to the next? Time to move on to the next L. All right. Anybody remember it? First of all, what is it currently on the shelves? I haven't bought Febreze in a while, admittedly. When I did, I remember 2Es. Anyone who has purchased recently Febreze, please give me. Okay. Regina says that she always remembers 2Es. All right. I don't know, like if I had a bottle in front of me right now, just purchased, I wonder which it would say, because I believe the company is stating it's currently the 1E and always has been, per their story. All right. Anybody else on Febreze? Okay. Here's another one. Basically, there's a couple of these that are spelling. Two more of them that are basically just like Febreze that are based on spelling. This next one is Oscar Mayer. And the two different spellings is Oscar Mayer spelled, excuse me, Meyer, or Oscar with Mayer spelled Mayer, which to me is more like mayor. But I believe the contemporary and officially accepted spelling is Oscar Mayer. However, hold on. This I'm going to have a problem with, because it just popped into my mind the little song we used to sing. Now, Regina, I ain't trying to call everybody else out, but Brian, Silo, anybody else like my age range, gotta remember we used to sing, or at least on the commercial, they used to be singing OSCARMEYR, didn't they say? It's how you spell my baloney, or something, however it went, but they were spelling the little boy, wasn't it? A little boy spelling his baloney name, OSCARMEYER. Hey, come on, man. Does anybody else remember the little boy from the commercial spelling it out that way? Y'all gotta get back with me on that. Oh, okay. Regina says, now this catches me differently. She remembers Mayer. Okay. Okay. Maybe I am just misremembering, but apparently there are other people who misremember it as well, or would be on this list. All right. Brian comes back with the song the little boy used to sing. See, I remember that. My baloney has a first name, it's OSCAR. My baloney has a second name, it's MAYER. Okay, so Brian remembers the MAYER as well. All right. Okay. I don't know. I remember the E. And I could almost swear I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping, and all these other folks around the world who feel that way are tripping as well. I don't know. But I acknowledge that y'all remember it that way. That's pretty cool. Okay, cool. All right. Anybody else on Oscar Mayer? Going once, going twice. Deuces to Oscar. We'll holler back. All right. Fruit Loops. Stop that. Fruit Loops, spelled FRUITLOOPS. I mean, that's what they was, right? Little Fruit Loops. Little loops flavored as different fruits. That's clearly what I recall. However, there is offered an alternate and a contemporary alternate, which is Fruit Loops spelled FROOTLOOPS. Fruit being spelled an alternative way as FROOT. Come on, man. This is one of them ones. This is one of them ones. Y'all ain't budging me on this one, right? Y'all ain't budging me on this one, man. Oh, Regina came in with another comment, and she remembers the whole song like Brian did for Oscar Mayer. Isha comes in and says, must be generic. Word life. Always been Fruit Loops, right? Must be the knockoff Jones got the FROOT. I mean, what? They're Fruit Loops, right? I mean, am I recalling that? Anybody else got something? Anybody else got something on Fruit Loops? Please chime in. True that, Ish. That must be the knockoff Jones. Couple more seconds for Fruit Loops. Man, and we ain't talking about the music joint Fruity Loops. Nah, we talking about the cereal. They clearly saying that it's FROOT loops. And I and a whole bunch of folk remember FRUIT, which makes perfect sense, loops. Hey, what? All right. Moving on to the next one. This is number 11. All right. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the board game Monopoly. Okay. Was or was not the Monopoly man wearing a monocle? The little eye joint, the little circle eye joint with the little chain where they wear. Do y'all not remember the monocle on the Monopoly guy? Work with me. Come on, man. The little dude definitely had the monocle in his eye, the way I remember it, at least. The little dude with the little tux, you know what I'm saying? And the little monocle in his eye. How many people remember it that way or another way? Please chime in on this one. I clearly recall little dude having a monocle in his eye. How do y'all recall it? Holla at me one time. Please, please, please holla at me on this one. Somebody get at me on this one, right? I got enough. What say ye, right? Anybody on the Monopoly board game, which way do you recall? Do you recall the Monopoly man wearing a monocle or no monocle? B chimes in and says, monocle for sure. That's where I'm coming from, man. Like there's zero question in my mind that the little dude had a monocle in his eye. Come on, man. That's visually too. You can't even confuse that. Little dude had on his tux and his monocle. I even remember the little pocket in his tux where the little chain was coming out of for his monocle. Man. Regina chimes in and says, does she agree? Okay, word life. Like I said, it's not even close for me. Like and I think y'all feel the same way. Like it was clearly dude had the monocle in his eye. All right, now how they doing it now? They get down with the disappearing joint on the monocle. I don't know, but that's how it was, right? Okay. Anybody else on the monocle man, the man from Monopoly having a monocle or no monocle? We'll wait a couple seconds on that one. And then I'm going to give my last one, which I'm saving for my bombshell, so to speak. Right? Okay. Before I move on to this one, I need, yeah. Okay. Before I move on to this one, anybody else have something on the Monopoly board game, the little Monopoly man wearing a monocle or no monocle? Which way do you recall it? Couple more seconds on that one. Mostly I see that we recall with a monocle, but if anybody else has anything contradictory, please chime in. Couple more seconds on that. Okay. I'm moving on to the grand finale. And yes, I used to be a drummer. All right. The final offering on this list is another that there is absolutely, positively no question in my mind about. And it's not even a discussion. Like I clearly, I just remembered that one way. Okay. But I can't wait to see what everybody else got to say on this last one. We're going to do it like this on the last album. All right. Okay. The last offering on this list is Publishers Clearinghouse. How many of y'all remember who it was that came to your door presenting people with the check and surprising them, people falling out, going crazy, whatnot? They did Publishers Clearinghouse, people almost falling out, passing out before they even say who it was. Just when they answer the door and they see who it is at the door, they see this person, they know already what's going down. Publishers Clearinghouse clearly had this individual as their spokesperson, and his name was Ed McMahon. Boom! They claim officially, this is the official position taken by Publishers Clearinghouse, is that Ed McMahon does not and never had anything at all to do with Publishers Clearinghouse. What? What are you telling me? This was one of the most famous dudes in at least the United States, if not internationally, known for Publishers Clearinghouse. Yes, he was the co-host of The Tonight Show with Ed McMahon. With Johnny Carson, right? It was Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon. They talked about it numerous times right on The Tonight Show about Ed McMahon's role as the spokesperson for Publishers Clearinghouse and him showing up at people's door. Are you playing with me? Man, stop that. Man, you lie. B said you lying, bro. Now, which way am I lying? What do you recall, B? Do you recall Ed McMahon or no Ed McMahon? I'm thinking you gotta recall Ed McMahon. Please chime back in. No way they put that in print. What? Put what in print? Go ahead. Tell which way are you saying it? Do you agree with them that there was never an Ed McMahon? Or do you remember, like me and others, that there was an Ed McMahon without question? Please, let me know which way you're saying that, Brian. I got to know how you remember it. Okay. Regina Vaughns. Yes, I recall Ed. Brian Williams. Definitely recall Ed McMizzle. Word life. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Brian. You was about to start to make me go a little bit. I was getting concerned that you didn't remember Ed McMahon. Yes, clearly. There's no way they're going to erase from our memories Ed McMahon. That's like another one I'm going to bring up real quick. This ain't even on the list, but the Ed McMahon is we're going to leave that out there for comment. But just recalling quickly, another one that I could have put on the list is that movie Shazam, starring Sinbad the comedian. How many people remember? First of all, how many people remember Sinbad? Y'all remember the brother. Okay. How many people remember the movie? I remember him right on the cover. Sinbad starring in that movie. Okay, that's another one. But I'm still my blowing up the spot is still got to be, how can they even try to erase Ed McMahon from Publishers Clearinghouse? You know how many times we've seen Ed McMahon popping up on people's doorstep and people falling out? Come on, man. Regina Vaughns. Yes, I recall Ed. Brian, definitely Ed McMizzle and Alchemical Tox. Fruit of the Loom, too. Okay. Yeah, Fruit of the Loom. That's another good one. Okay. How many people and I wore these drawers all the time. How many people remember Fruit of the Loom with the little cornucopia, with the little dudes and the little cornucopia with the fruit coming out of it? How many people remember? You got to remember that. That's, oh man. Solo chimes back in at Tony Atlas. One thing you'll never forget is not getting that money from Ed, right? Yes. There's no way that people go erase Ed McMahon from showing up delivering the Publishers Clearinghouse joint. I mean, come on, man. That's a good one. Somebody else, if you recall, chime in on the Fruit of the Loom joint too. All y'all should have something to say about that. Come on, man. Fruit of the Loom definitely had the little cornucopia with the little fruit and the little Fruit of the Loom dudes. Remember the fat apple dude? And come on, man. The cornucopia on the label. Y'all don't remember the horn-shaped joint? All right. Come on, man. Somebody, if anybody recalls or got a comment on either one of them before we close this out on Publishers Clearinghouse with Ed McMahon or the cornucopia on the label of Fruit of the Loom. But still, my blowaway was the Ed McMahon joint. How can they even begin to possibly offer up that was, something that we all just mass imagined? All right, or mass misremembered, as they say. Amazing. All right, folks. We have shared quite a few things and different examples of what I would say are, in fact, signs of alternate realities / alternate timelines that we are currently experiencing now, right? I think that these things are very distinct parts of the memory and in fact the psyche of us all. And I think that the profundity in these very differing examples, this myriad of examples, really paints a picture of multidimensionality that we are existing in on this planet today and going forward. So, I don't know where we all individually stand on this and whether we agree that, and folks, you can feel free to chime in, that these are signs pointing to those, to the phenomenon of multidimensionality, of alternate timelines and alternate realities. I'll say that these are but a few of such signs, right? But probably some of the very popular ones that really are head scratchers for a lot of folks, right? And obviously, alternative or alternate realities would be a bit of a head scratcher for most of us, right? The fact that you can be experiencing one reality and I'm experiencing a somewhat different reality or slightly different reality is something that is very profound, I would say. Brother Sean Johnson, what's up, family? Chiming in, PLR, peace, love, respect, true indeed. Thank you very much for chiming in. This has been a wonderful conversation. I thank all of y'all wholeheartedly for chiming in and the different things that you've had to say, comments and whatnot. This has been a robust and wonderful conversation. Once again, thank you all so much. I love you all, truly. And I'm very grateful for another rousing conversation, an example of the growth of this channel, not just the channel, but more specifically the podcast, Built with Big King. This has been episode number 5. And again, I thank you all so much. What's the topic? Brother Sean, the topic is, are examples of the Mandela Effect signs of alternative realities / alternative timelines? Right? And I sort of leave that as an open-ended question. Are they, in fact, signs of alternative realities and alternative timelines? And then if you have any additional comments on how that phenomenon affects you in general or how you perceive it. Any comments on that before we close this out? I mean, this has been great once again. Really great. I can't thank you all enough for aiding me in building this forum, right, that we're having, man. If you go back from episode 1 up through now, I feel like we are really developing a forum, right, that we can discuss different things and get and delve into the complexity of things and start to really explore various nuances throughout our conversation. Sean Johnson, what timeline would you say we are on right now? Well, depends on who you ask, my brother. Because, first of all, I would say that I do wholeheartedly embrace that we are all most likely experiencing at least slightly different realities, right? I would remind folks that our consciousness, whether it is our consciousness on the surface or our subconsciousness, right, is always sort of transmitting our intentions and giving our electromagnetic input in the forms of our intentions and our experiences, and even our shared experiences, right? So timelines is a very interesting thing, because I believe that if we think about it in logical setting, it's often stated that time is indeed a signature of the fourth dimension, right? They often say the fourth dimension that we would add on to to length, width, and height, and the parameters of 3D or three-dimensional existence, as we extend it on into fourth dimensional existence, that we are including in now the dimension of time. Now, others would say, and I would even tend to agree with this, is that in explanation of the fourth dimension, we could certainly become, give a much more detailed answer, and that it's much more than just the dimension of time, right? But in thinking about just that aspect of it, the fourth dimension of time, it would make sense that we reflect upon this in terms of timelines or being different dimensions, right? If time is a dimension, then a timeline obviously would be one of those particular dimensions, as we talk about different timelines. So that's my thinking on it. So Sean also adds, I say we're in two timelines moving into one. That's a very interesting perspective. I might even chime a little further in that we are in multiple timelines or alternate realities slash dimensions, and that there are multiple outcomes, right? We may have more than just two timelines merging. We may have a plethora of timelines merging to form altogether new timelines or versions of reality. I would say that is very much possible in particularly in this multi-dimensional time, and what is again referred to in the Norwegian cultures as Ragnarok, right? Particularly in this timeline, I can see the potential for multiple occurrences of alternative timelines or alternate realities. Sean asks, is time real? I would offer up real in that it is a construct. And when I say a construct, I simply mean it is something that relies on our perception. I'm saying that it's a mental construct that relies on our perception, because what is time without us perceiving it? I.e., there are many different calendars around the world and in different cultures and or time eras. There are many different calendars. Calendars are supposed to be tools through which we keep track of segments of time, right? Adding up to and equaling what most people have typically on their wall, a year, which is a large segment of time, a segment that reflects the rotation, or excuse me, the orbit of our planet around the sun. Okay. How can there be, we know that there's one, well, I won't even say that. Obviously, we must be referring to alternative realities in alternative timelines if we have alternative calendars that refer to the same time period in alternative alignment. You can go to different, we say it's 2004 right now. There are some cultures around the world and some calendars that will tell you differently. So in my summation for that, I would say that, yeah, obviously we're talking about different dimensions if we're talking about different timelines, right? So in that respect, as being a mental construct and being reliant upon human perception, like the calendars, certainly time is real in that aspect, right? Not real in so much as our experiencing of it as now, past, and present, because in reality, there is no now, past, and present. There's just the now. It's that our perception, our human perception, is typically not expansive enough to encompass that we're talking about one actual event unfolding. You could label that event humanity on Earth. That's just one way of looking at it. There are many, many ways of looking at it. And I've heard many different ways of articulating those different or alternative ways of viewing this, right? And expressing it. Let me catch up a little bit to the chat. Sean Johnson continued to say the Schumann resonance. Resonance, yes, affect our timeline. Does the Schumann resonance affect our timeline? Well, I would say yes. Here's why. See, I thought we was about to chime this up. You done got me on something else, brother. Or got me unfolding another beautiful nuance. So thank you for that, Sean. But to answer that, dimensionality. We often say third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension, etc. That itself is a linear explanation of dimensionality. Okay. But one explanation can be offered up that dimensions are states of existence, vibratory states of existence. Everything is in vibration constantly. It can be measured in hertz. Everything is constantly in vibration. Dimensions are states of existence that are in vibrational, some could say flux. I wouldn't necessarily say it's in flux because no, it's an actual state of existence. And what separates these states of existence are vibrational frequency thresholds. I say that to say, if let's use a human being as the example. If you as the human being are vibrating at a certain frequency, you may be vibrating in alignment with the third dimension. If you are vibrating at, let's say, a somewhat higher frequency, you may start to vibrate in alignment with the fourth dimension. If you vibrate at a high enough frequency to escape linearity, which is essentially capped off by the fourth dimensional threshold, and enter into fifth dimensional dimensionality and beyond, you've then become multidimensional. And you've escaped that fourth dimensional threshold of time. Since vibrational frequency comes into play, then yes, the Schumann resonance must logically have an impact on that. All right. Jordan stated resonance or resonance. It is the first, resonance with an A. Sean came back and says, so we are experiencing past, present, and future simultaneously. It's happening simultaneously, right? As one event unfolding. I kind of personally think of it like a football game. When somebody asks me, is the game on? Yeah, the game's on. It's one event. The game is one event. But you can break it down into time segments as it has been, i.e., the quarters of the game and the other increments in which time is kept within the framework of the game, within the construct. But the game itself is one event that unfolded. If someone asks you, did you see the game? Yeah, I saw the game. You saw that one whole event. But if you were watching the game, you were watching it being broken down into time segments. We do the very same thing with our lives. That's just one way of explaining it. Anybody else want to chime in on that? This has been fascinating. Thank you so much, Sean, for jumping in with such interesting, right, and really thought-provoking input. Thank you for adding to the forum. We appreciate that. Anybody else still hanging in here with us as we enter the 2-hour mark? Anybody else enter into this with us? Or anybody else has anything further that will push us into that? Let's not go that far. Y'all been gracious enough to spend this much time with me. I'm appreciative and grateful. Man, this has been magnificent. Once again, thank you all for helping me to continue to build the worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq. I love you all. That's the truth. I'm out.